Good evening, everybody. Today we will start classification of living organisms. In this chapter, you will learn recognize the vast diversity of living organisms in terms of variety of size and complexity, explain the meaning of biodiversity, describe the levels of biodiversity, appreciate the need for classification of living organisms, justify the rationale underlying the five kingdom classification and hierarchy in classification of living organisms, classify kingdom Plantae up to divisions, kingdom Animalia up to phyla, and the chordates up to classes. So let us understand what do you mean by biodiversity. The enormous variety of organisms is termed as biodiversity. So bio means life and diversity means variety. So we have so many organisms in this nature. It may be a plant, it may be a microorganism, or it may be a huge animal. So we have so much of varieties in them. So this diversity within the life, or you can say organisms, is called as biodiversity. So next, very important concept, reproduction. So what do you mean by reproduction? Living things give birth to young ones of their own kind. So we have so much of diverse still within our earth is because of a single process, that is reproduction. Every organism undergo reproduction. So it is nothing but living things or living beings give birth to their young ones of their own kind is called as reproduction. Next important terminology, taxonomy. So what do you mean by taxonomy? Very simple. The science of classification or systematics is termed as taxonomy. Since we have so much of diverse in the living organisms, so we have a need of a branch of science which deals with the classification of living organisms. That is nothing but called as taxonomy. So let us see the different levels of biodiversity, or we can say the different types of biodiversity. So we have three different types, that is ecological or ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. So at the right side you have diagram. So very in a simple concept we can study what do you mean by ecological, species, and genetic diversity. Ecological diversity is nothing but the diversity which have a diversity within the ecosystem. Like we have aquatic ecosystem, or we have terrestrial ecosystem, or we have aerial ecosystem, right? So we have different organisms living in water, different organisms live on land. So this diversity is called as ecological diversity or ecosystem diversity. Secondly, on the top of it, we have species diversity. So what do you mean by species? All the plants belongs to a kingdom Plantae, but at the same time, we have different types of trees in the forest. No tree is similar to the another. So we have different species. So this belongs to the species diversity. Lastly, we have genetic diversity. So what do you mean by genetic diversity? So we have an example, that is differences in the coat color of rabbits. We have example, different coat color in rabbits. Though the rabbit belong to the same species, but at the same time, no rabbit have a similar color. We have different colors of rabbits. Take an example of human beings. No human being is similar to each other. So this is because of the genetic material, that is DNA. So this is genetic diversity. So let us see them in detail. Firstly, ecological diversity. So here, organisms evolved features which helped them to adapt to their surroundings. So surrounding is nothing but here ecosystem. Like fishes has learned to swim, so they belong to aquatic ecosystem. So they adapt to their surroundings. So this brings some diversity. So it is called ecosystem diversity. Next, we have species diversity. Variety of species living in a certain geographical area constitutes species diversity. Yes. So, given geographical area, we have taken an example of forest. We have different species of trees within the forest, which bring about the species diversity. Thirdly, we have genetic diversity. Genes control the features of a particular species. Genes of individuals belonging to the same species are similar. So, what are genes here? The genes are nothing but they are the functional fragments of DNA. So, basic genetic material in all the human beings or individual, which bring about the genetic diversity. So, grouping of organisms according to the similarities and differences is termed as classification. So, till now we have seen diversity in the living organisms. So, how should we group them? So, grouping of these different organisms according to their similarities and differences is termed as classification. So, that's what we have classification of living organisms. Let us first understand how can we classify the humans, right? So let us first understand about human beings. So humans are being classified as, so we have hierarchy of classification. At the right side you have hierarchy of classification, like first it is kingdom, next phylum, then comes the class, then order, family, genus, and species. So, in this hierarchy, we are going to classify the human beings. So, human beings belongs to the kingdom that is Animalia, and they belong to a phylum called as Chordata, right? And they belongs to a class Mammalia and order Primates. They belongs to the family Hominidae, and their genus is Homo. Lastly, the species that is Sapiens. So let us study each of this hierarchy in detail. So coming to the kingdom Animalia. So here, what do you mean by kingdom Animalia? The Animalia kingdom consists of all the animals which are multicellular, eukaryotic, and heterotrophs. So multicellular in the sense they are highly developed. Eukaryotic means the organisms which have nuclear membrane in their cell. So they are eukaryotic. Heterotrophs, that is, they depend on the others for their food. They are heterotrophs. Such kind of organisms are being grouped under the kingdom Animalia. Secondly, we have phylum Chordata. So what do you mean by phylum Chordata here? The animals with the notochord means all the organisms with the backbone. We can say that is vertebrates. All the animals with the backbones are being grouped under chordata. Thirdly, we have next hierarchy is the class. So class Mammalia. So what do you mean by class Mammalia? So here the most important concept is that these organisms have well developed mammary glands. That is, these organisms will look after their young ones by feeding milk. They have hairy skins and they produce milk to feed their young ones. So these all organisms belongs to class Mammalia. Next we have order primates. So what do you mean by order primates? Means these organisms will share the group with the monkeys and apes. That is our primates. Who were our primates? That is monkeys and apes. So the organisms which share the characteristics with the monkeys and apes, like flat face, or you have forward facing eyes, or it may be opposable digits. Digits in the sense fingers. So if they share these characteristics, they come under order primates. Next we have family Hominidae. What do you mean by Hominidae family? Means these organisms, they are the groups of organisms which share with primitive humans. So they are human-like creatures. All human-like creatures were being grouped under family Hominidae. We have genus, that is Homo, and a species, that is Sapiens. That is, our primates are called as Homo sapiens. So what are Homo sapiens? Are nothing but they are the humans. The genus Homo are nothing but they are the humans, are the only living member in this genus, and all the modern humans have been grouped under sapiens. So today we can say the modern human beings are being grouped under, that is Homo sapiens, which belongs to kingdom Animalia. So this is how the human beings were being classified in a different hierarchy based on their similarities. Now we will see the three domains of classification. So first and foremost, the classification was being done in a three domains. So we have three important groups of organisms, that is three domains of classification. The firstly, it is Archaebacteria. What do you mean by Archaebacteria? So this group, or you can say this domain, consists of basically bacteria which are thermophilic or heat loving bacteria that live in a high temperature vent. So we can say the bacteria are basically thermophilic and halophiles. They were thermophilic and halophiles, means they were living in a very high temperature vent. So this belongs to the Archaebacteria group. Next domain is Eubacteria. So what is Eubacteria? They are single-celled organisms without well-developed nucleus. So eu in the sense that is primitive, and bacteria we know it is a organism. The organ bacteria which do not have well-developed nucleus, they come under Eubacteria. So the best example for the Eubacteria is a cyanobacteria. We can say primitive bacteria is called as a Eubacteria. Next domain we have is Eukarya. It is also called as Eukaryota. Eukarya, or it is also called as a Eukaryota. So this is one of the organisms. It is all the other organisms with a well-formed nucleus. Very important. They have a well-formed nucleus in their cell or the cells. So here U stands for true. Karyon means nucleus. So these organisms, the organisms which have a well-developed nucleus, means the nucleus with the nuclear membrane, they come under Eukaryota, or it is also called as Eukarya. So this is how the first classification was been based on their development of the organisms into three domains. That is Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, and Eukarya. We will move upon to the next important classification. So after the classification of the three domains of classification, one of the scientists called as a Whittaker has come up with five kingdoms of classification. He classified the organisms on this earth into five important kingdoms. So first one is Monera. The first important kingdom is Monera. It is also called as prokaryotes. They are also the prokaryotic organisms. So here the kingdom Monera consists of single-celled, no well-formed nucleus. So Whittaker told that we can place the organisms which are single-celled organisms and without a well-formed nucleus, they come under kingdom Monera, and they are called as prokaryotes. The next kingdom is Protista. It is also called as a Protista. It is Protista or Protista. So here single-celled They are also single celled with well formed nucleus. They have a well formed, that is little bit developed form of Monera. So they are called as eukaryotes. Thirdly, we have fungi. So the next kingdom is a fungi. They are eukaryotes and multicelled saprophytes. That is little bit more developed than the protista. Protista were single celled but eukaryote, but fungi is eukaryotic but multicelled and saprophytes. The fourth kingdom of classification is plantae. So here plantae are the eukaryotic, multicelled and autotrophs. So little bit more developed than the fungi. That is autotrophic in the sense they can synthesize their own food. So they all are classified under the kingdom Plantae. All the plants belongs to the kingdom Plantae. So this was been told by Whitaker. The last highly developed kingdom, the fifth kingdom of classification is Animalia. So these consist of eukaryotes, multicelled and heterotrophs. So here the animals, all the organisms, that is animals, come under Animalia, which were eukaryotic, multicelled, but they cannot synthesize their own food. They depend on others for their food. So all the animals come under Animalia. So this was about the classification of animals into a five kingdom of classification. Now we will move upon to the next important classification of plants, that is Plantae. Kingdom Plantae is further again classified into the first most important kingdom, that is Thallophyta. It was been classified into Thallophyta. So what do you mean by Thallophyta here? They have no special roots. The plants which do not have special roots, no stem or leaves. So such plants come under, that is Thallophyta. Example is algae. The next important group in the Plantae is Bryophyta. So what is Bryophyta? Here the root like hyphae. They have root, but it is like a hyphae. It is just spread like a mat. Hyphae in the sense it is spreaded like a mat. But they do not have true fruit roots. They do not have true roots. It looks like a roots, but there are no true roots. Example, liverworts and mosses. The next class is Pteridophyta. So the Pteridophyta has true roots and underground stem, spore bearing leaves, example ferns. So they are the little bit developed form of Bryophyta. They have roots, they have true roots and stem also, which is underground, and they bear the spores on the leaves. They have the leaves which have spores on them. Example is the ferns. Next we have angiosperms. So above three, that is Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta, do not produce the seeds. They do not produce the seeds. The next one is the highly developed form of the plants, that is angiosperms. They bear the seeds. So here these are basically flowering plants. Fruits bear the seeds. All flowering plants, that is spermatophyta. What is spermatophyta? That is seed bearing plants come under, that is a spermatophyta. So these kind of plants are classified under angiosperms. The next important classification is the gymnosperms. Gymnosperms also produce the seeds, but they do not have flowers. No flowers, and the seeds are naked, in the sense the seeds are not enclosed inside the flowers, they are open. Seeds are naked and not enclosed in fruit. They do not form the fruits. Example, pine and juniper. So we will see the gross classification of the plants in short. So here we have two classification, basically the plants which make the seeds and plant do not make the seeds. Do not make the seeds are the underdeveloped plants and make the seeds are the developed plants. So again, the plants which do not make the seeds has, some of them do not have no true roots, no true roots, no stems, and no leaves, right? But some of them, so here they have no true roots, stems, or leaf structure. They are nothing but called as algae. The last, that is called as algae. So algae do not make the seeds. It don't have roots. It don't have stem and no leaves. It is just spreaded on the land. So that is algae. Coming to the next classification, that is some of them which do not make the seeds has roots, stems, and leaves. So they are, the best example for them is the ferns. So which has the roots, stems, and leaves. As we already discussed, that is their leaves bear the spores in them. That is ferns. Next is the algae which do not have the root, stem, and leaves, but they show some of the false roots. Has some roots, stems, or leaf structures. The roots are just like hyphae. The roots are just like a hyphae. So they are called nothing but, that is a mosses. They are nothing but mosses. That is, mosses do not have roots, but it shows the roots. It shows like a root-like structures. So they come under, that is a mosses. That is bryophyta. So coming to the seed making plants, which makes the seeds, some of them are flowering and non-flowering. Non-flowering are called as gymnosperms and flowering are called as angiosperms. So non-flowering example is a conifers. They do not have flowers. That is, seeds are open, they are naked. And flowering is, best example is a sunflower. So this is how the plants are being classified into 5 important classes. That is pteridophyta, bryophyta, thallophyta, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. We will see in detail the classification of a kingdom Animalia. So we saw the classification of Plantae. Now the classification of kingdom Animalia. The Animalia has been classified into two important groups, that is a chordata and non-chordata. So chordata and non-chordata, on the what basis? It is basically on the presence of the vertebrates, that is a backbone. So we will discuss non-chordata. In non-chordata, we have phylum Porifera. So phylum Porifera, it has irregular body with the pores of water containing oxygen and food. Example, cycon and sponge. So the name itself suggests porifera. So it is irregular body. It don't have a regular body. It don't have a symmetry, and it has pores on it. The right side, the first diagram. So you can see the structures with the pores. It do not have an exact structure, but at the same time, it has a pores which consist of water along with the oxygen and food. So such organisms come under phylum Porifera. The best example for it is cycon and sponge. The next phylum is phylum Cynidria. So phylum Cynidria has tentacles surrounds the mouth. Stinging cells are present and reproduction is by budding. Reproduction is by budding. Example, hydra, jellyfish, corals. So at the right side, you can see. So here, the yellow-like structures which are present around are nothing but called as tentacles. So here, tentacles will surround the mouth. They have stinging cells present. That is, which can sting to each other. Stinging cells are present. And how do they reproduce? They reproduce by the budding. It is one of the asexual mode of reproduction, which forms the buds. Example is the hydra, jellyfish, and corals. So next one is phylum Platyhelminthes. So here Platyhelminthes, so name itself suggests it has flat body, mostly worms. Most probably we have worms in this phylum. Example, tapeworms and liver fluke. So almost all the worms come under the phylum Platyhelminthes. They have flat body. You can see at the right side the worm which has a flat body. So best example is the liver fluke and the tapeworms. Next one is a phylum Ascalhelminthes. So here Ascalhelminthes has the round parasitic. They are basically round and parasitic. Example, Ascaris and pinworms. So you can see here they are usually round in structure. They are usually round and they are pin like worms. They are like a pin like worms, and they are parasitic. The most important is they are parasitic. That is, they live on the other body for the nutrition. The next important phylum is the Annelida. The phylum Annelida, they have segmented body. Very important. They have a segmented body, excrete by nephridia. They always excrete by the nephridia and hermaphrodite. Example for Annelida is the earthworm, leech and nereis. So here you can see the very next to the diagram. That is highly segmented. You can so many segments, finger like projections along the body, right? So the segmentation shows that it belongs to phylum Annelida, and they always excrete in the sense that is putting out of the waste by the nephridia. They put out by the help of the nephridia. The best example for this phylum is the earthworm. Next we have phylum Arthropoda. So here the phylum Arthropoda has jointed legs. Arthropoda, poda in the sense legs, arthro in the sense jointed. So they have jointed legs, body divided into head, thorax, abdomen, body covered with a cuticle. It is covered by cuticle. Example, insects and spider. So here the very first diagram you have so many insects. Almost all the insects have jointed legs. So the most similarity of this phylum is they have jointed legs and body is divided into head, thorax and abdomen, and it is covered by the cuticle. Example is the insects and spider. Next phylum is Echinodermata. So here the Echinodermata, they have flat or globular deep sea animals. They have flat body. Basically they are globular deep sea animals. They have 5 arms, or the body is divided into 5 divisions. They have spiny skin. They have a very spiny skin. Example is a starfish. So here the starfish is the very best example for the Echinodermata. Usually they have flat body and they are always deep sea animals. Most of them are the deep sea animals. And you can see there are 5 arms for the starfish. The next phylum is phylum Mollusca. They are also called mollusks. So here the phylum Mollusca, they have soft, unsegmented body enclosed in a hard shell made of calcium carbonate, and they have a muscular foot. Example is oysters, snail or octopus. So best example, oyster, snail and octopus. I am showing you snail for example for mollusks. So they have unsegmented, that is body is not divided. They do not have segments and they are being covered by a hard shell. You can see the shell. It is made up of calcium carbonate. It is made up of calcium carbonate, very hard it is, and they have muscular foot. So example is a snail, octopus and oysters. So till now we have discussed about phylum Nonchordata. Now we will move upon to the phylum Chordata, that is which have backbone. So first classification for the phylum Chordata is class Chordactis. So class Chordactis have skeleton made of cartilage. So the skeleton is made up of cartilage. The best example for this is a marine fish, which have 7 pairs of gills, slits. That is example sharks or rays. So almost all marine fishes, sharks or rays come under Chondroctis. So these have the skeleton made of cartilage, and they have 7 pairs of gills. What is gill? It is one of the respiratory organ for the aquatic animals. They respire with the help of gills. The next class is Osteichthyes. So here in the class Osteichthyes, they have bony skeleton. The Chondroctis have cartilage skeleton, but this class has bony skeleton. They are basically found in both sea and fresh water. So these are found in sea and fresh water. Gills, they also have for breathing, gills for breathing, and covered by operculum. So here they are highly developed than the Chondroctis. So you can see their operculum. Behind that, they have gills, which are meant for respiration. So gills are being covered by the operculum. So the best example for the Osteichthyes is a rohu and catla, which is a developed form of the fishes, basically found in the sea and fresh water. The next class for the chordata is amphibia. So amphibia, they live on land but lay eggs in water. So they are both water and land living animals where life history is been completed. So they complete their life both on land and water. Both adapted, they are both adapted to the life in water and land. That is, class amphibia animals are adapted both for the land and water. And they breathe with the lungs. So here in Chondroctis and Osteichthyes, we saw they breathe with the gills, whereas the class amphibia, they breathe with the lungs. So example for amphibia is salamanders and frogs. So you all know frog, and I am showing you the picture of a salamander. So which will live both in the water as well as on the land. The next class is class Reptilia. So here they are land animals. Now we will move from water to the land. They are land animals. They lay eggs on land. They basically lay eggs on land, and their body is covered with the scales. Their body is covered with the scales. Example, lizard, snake, crocodile, turtle. So most of the land living animals which their body is covered with the scales, they come under that is class Reptilia. So you can see here almost all the crocodiles, snakes, turtle, they all come under that is class Reptilia. You can say they are terrestrial animals. The next important class is class Aves. So class Aves are aerial mode of life. So aerial in the sense they always live in air. They have light bones. They have a very light bones, and they have beak for feeding. These animals have beaks for feeding and also wings for flying. Since they are aerial mode of life, they have wings for flying. The best example for them is the birds. Almost all the birds come under class Aves. The last class, that is class Mammalia, the highly developed class form of chordata, that is class Mammalia. They are classified with the mammary glands. They have mammary glands for producing milk for young ones, and their body is covered with the hair. They have hairy skin. So example for mammalia is cow, mouse, and lastly it is a man. So the very developed form of a chordata is class Mammalia. They have mammary glands, they have body covered with the skin, they have hairy skins, that is, cow, mouse, and man come under class Mammalia. So we will see the gross picture of animal kingdom classification. So animal kingdom is classified into two important class, that is non-chordates, which are also called as invertebrates, and chordata, which is called as vertebrate. So let us see first non-chordata. So here non-chordata is being classified again into three levels. One is cellular level, that is phylum Porifera, tissue level, phylum Synedria, and next is organ level, that is organ level of organisms will come have two important classifications. That is, the first we have, they do not have body cavity, which are called acoelomates. Which have body cavity, that is coelomates. So in that we have phylum Platyhelminthes, acoelomates, Platyhelminthes, and phylum Nematoda. And in coelomates, we have phylum Annelida, phylum Arthropoda, phylum Mollusca, and lastly we have phylum Echinodermata. Coming to the chordates, in chordates we have again five classes, that is class Pisces, class Amphibia, class Reptilia, class Aves, lastly class Mammalia. So we have Pisces, we know they have two types of fishes. One is a cartilaginous fishes and another is a bony fishes. So this is how the kingdom animal is being classified into the two levels, vertebrates and non-vertebrates. We'll discuss some of the question answers. Which of the following branches deals with interaction of same species of living organisms with their non-living environment? So we have options here. It is horticology, cynecology, ecology, or paleontology. So which branch deals with the interaction of same species of living organisms with their non-living environment? So any answers? Is it horticology, cynecology, ecology, or paleontology? Okay, we'll see the answer. So the answer is option 3, that is ecology. Ecology is the scientific study of the relationship that living organisms have with each other and with their natural environment. Ecosystems are composed of dynamically interacting parts, including organisms, the communities they make up, and the non living components of their environment. The basic structure and functional unit of living organism is, so we have options. Which is the basic structure and functional unit of living organisms? Is it a cell, tissue, organs, or systems? So which is the basic unit, basic structure and functional unit of organisms? Okay, so the answer is first option, that is cell. So cell is a basic structure and functional unit of all the living organisms. So Robert Hooke, in the year, that is 1665, observed a section of cork under his microscope and found its structure resembling a honeycomb. He gave the name cell to each of the compartments of the honeycomb like structure. So it is the Robert Hooke who has been observed the cell in the form of a honeycomb. Blue green algae are included in the group. So we have discussed about blue green algae. They come under group Eubacteria, Cyanobacteria, Protozoa, or fungi. Do they come under Eubacteria, Cyanobacteria, Protozoa, or fungi? Okay, that is the second one, that is Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, which are also known as blue-green algae. They are also called as blue-green algae. They are single-celled. They are basically single-celled and belong to the group, to the family of prokaryotes. So basically, blue-green algae are prokaryotes. That means they do not have a cell nucleus. They do not have a cell with a nucleus. That is not a developed nucleus. Exobiology deals with the study of. So it is a branch of science, we can say. It deals with the study of external characters of living organisms, or is it deals with the life on the surface of the earth, or life in the outer layers of atmosphere, or is it deals with the life in the other planets and space? So what is exobiology? Okay, it is option 4, that is it deals with the life in the other planets and space. Exobiology is a branch of science that deals with the possibility and likely nature of life on the other planets or in a space. The primary goal of exobiological research is to reach a better understanding of the processes leading to the origin, evolution, and distribution of life on Earth or elsewhere in the universe. Dinosaurs were mammals that became extinct, whether they were mammals that became extinct, large herbivores, creatures which gave rise to hippopotamus species, or does they were egg-laying mammals, or does they were reptiles that became extinct? So what were dinosaurs basically? Does they were mammals they become extinct, or large herbivores which give rise to hippopotamus species? Does they were egg-laying mammals, or they were reptiles that became extinct? Okay, so they were basically reptiles that became extinct. So extinct in the sense which have become extinction. They are no more now. Their generation has been stopped. So that is extinct. Although the word dinosaur means terrible lizard, the name is somewhat misleading. It is somewhat misleading as dinosaurs are not lizards. Rather, they represent a separate group of reptiles with a distinct upright posture not found in lizards. And many extinct forms did not exhibit traditional reptilian characteristics. So, though they do not exhibit the reptilian characteristics, they come and they are grouped under the reptiles which became extinct. The chemicals released by one species of animals in order to attract the other members of the same species are. So here one species will release a chemical which attract the other species. So what are those called as? They were hormones or nucleic acids or pheromones or they were steroids. Chemicals released by one of the species of animals in order to attract the other members of the same species. Hormones, nucleic acids, pheromones, or steroids. Okay, so they are called as pheromones. Pheromones are the chemicals capable of acting outside the body of the secreting individual to impact the behavior of the receiving individual. There are alarm pheromones, food trail pheromones, sex pheromones, and many other that affect behavior or psychology. Their use among insects has been particularly well documented. So we have different types of pheromones which will release outside the body and impact the behavior of the receiving individual. According to your text, in the sense, according to your lesson, we learned what can be thought of as a genetic library that keeps the life going on Earth. So, what can we say is a genetic library that keeps life going on the Earth? Is it a bioengineering lab? We can say it's a bioengineering lab, or is it a human genes, or is it a human genome project, or is it the biodiversity? What can be thought of a genetic library that keeps life going on the Earth? Is it a bioengineering lab, human genes, human genome project, or is it a biodiversity? Okay, so it is the fourth option, that is biodiversity. So it is because of the diversity of life on the earth, the life is still going on the earth. So we can say it is just like a genetic library. Penicillin is extracted from, so it is one of our antibiotic which has been extracted from, is it yeast or algae, fungus or lichen? From which of these organisms we extract the penicillin? Yeast, algae, fungus or lichen? Okay, it is third option, that is fungus. Penicillin is produced from the genus of fungi Penicillia. So it is one of a Penicillia is a name of a genus of fungi. All penicillin are A-lactam or alpha-lactam antibiotics and are used in the treatment of bacterial infections caused by susceptible, used usually, that is gram positive organisms. So almost all the infections caused by gram positive bacteria can be cured by the penicillin produced by the fungi Penicillia. The smallest taxon of classification is it kingdom, family, variety, species? Which is the smallest taxon of classification? Kingdom, family, variety, or species? So it is the fourth option, that is a species. So species is the smallest taxon of classification. The protista have which of the following? So we have learnt about protista. So which of the characteristics have protists? So is it free nuclei acid aggregates? They have a free nucleic acid aggregates, or nucleoprotein in direct contact with the rest of the cell substance, or they have membrane bound nucleoproteins within the cytoplasm, or they have nucleoproteins condensed together in a loose mass. So, which of these have the characteristics in protist? Okay, that is, we have third option, that is membrane bound nucleoproteins within the cytoplasm. So here protists are eukaryotic organisms. The protists, or we can say protista, they are eukaryotic organisms. They have well developed nucleus. So well developed nucleus in the sense they have membrane bound. Nucleus have a membrane with a nuclear membrane. So we can say it is option 3, membrane bound nucleoproteins present within the cytoplasm. The five kingdom of classification was proposed by. So who of these scientists proposed the five kingdom of classification? Is it Whittaker or John Froh, or is it Witter or Carl Weiss? Who proposed the five kingdoms of classification? So we discussed while discussing the five kingdoms of classification. So it is the first option, Whittaker. So Whittaker proposed the five kingdoms of classification. Earlier, there were only two kingdoms of classification, that is, plants and animals. We had only two kingdoms of classification, plant and animalia. Whittaker, in the year 1969, suggested that bacteria should not be in the plant kingdom and protozoa should not be in the animal kingdom. So he gave the five kingdoms of classification. So we'll move on to the conclusion for the classification of living organisms. So in this chapter, you learned recognize the vast diversity of living organisms in terms of variety of size and complexity. So we saw the biodiversity in the living organisms. We also explained the meaning of biodiversity and described the levels of biodiversity and appreciate the need for the classification of living organisms. Since we have so much diverse of living organisms, so we saw the classification of living organisms, justified the rationale underlying the five kingdom classification and the hierarchy in the classification of living organisms. So we saw the five kingdom of classification and hierarchy in the classification of living organisms. Lastly, we saw the classification of kingdom Plantae up to the divisions, and also we saw the kingdom Animalia into the phyla, and we saw the Animalia in the form of chordates, that is up to the classes. So if you have any queries or any questions based on this chapter, you are welcome. Just visit the edurapid.com site. You will have many more questions to discuss on this. So please practice them. If you have any doubts, you can ask.